Welcome home, Raiders. Tonight, will Overwatch League get more teams for 2019? Or is this just clickbait? It's definitely not the latter. As Convert to Raid presents BattleNet Sports. Welcome to BattleNet Sports, everybody. My name is Pat Crane, and I am your host for this show. This week is a little, we're kind of in a lull. We're in a lull where everybody's getting ready for Austin, for DreamHack Austin. That is coming up this weekend, and there are two big things that are going to be going on in Austin. Now, first of all, HCT. There's going to be a big HCT tournament. We don't have the decks quite yet in to the officials, so no Jocelyn Moffat this week. But next week we will definitely follow up, and we'll figure out what the action was for HCT in Austin. The other thing is StarCraft 2. If you're a StarCraft 2 fan, WCS. This is DreamHack Austin is going to feature WCS playoff essentially for North America, and I know that there are players out there that are getting ready. They have the new maps. They're trying to learn all the maps for WCS this weekend. All of this stuff is going to be happening for DreamHack Austin. Big stuff. Not just those tournaments, other tournaments as well that we don't cover here. The other thing is HGC. HGC is on a bit of a break. I know that we do have some roster changes, and we also have one team that is no more. This may be shocking to some people. We will talk with Jules as we get a little bit closer. I think we're going to talk to her next week as we get closer to the mid-season brawl, and we'll discuss all of this stuff and so much more, but we'll do it next time. This time, what we do have is we have EU Cup number 2 for the summer, and also Overwatch League, both of which Fist will be joining us for all of that stuff. So let's get to it right now. Well, we are here to talk a little bit of Overwatch League, and to help us out, of course, Thist is back. Hello, Thist.
Of course.
So, as we discuss Overwatch League, I kind of want to talk about the elephant in the room. Actually, there's a couple of elephants in the room. And
how many elephants are there?
There are many elephants. Actually, there's 3 elephants in the room. As we look at the overall standings for Stage 4, I'm just going to start with Stage 4.
Okay.
Seoul Dynasty is 0-4. Boston Uprising 0-4. Dallas Fuel 3-1.
Ooh.
What is going on?
I knew it would happen eventually.
What is happening?
You know what? I think it's a mixture of Mickey being the best Brigitte in the league, and that is sort of lending to Seagull being able to play D.Va, who is playing D.Va very well, ridiculously well. And that is giving Taimu some kind of, I think, like, just the way that they've been playing better lately has been giving Taimu more confidence, because his Widowmaker, like, he's been popping off. Like, we all knew that he had that Widowmaker in him, but now it's coming out, and it seems like, and their new coach, Arrow. So it's like, it just seems like the stars are aligning a little bit for Dallas finally, and obviously this meta really speaks to them. There's a really great map pool for them in this stage, and I'm so glad to see it. Like they've been through a lot this season, and it's nice that they finally won against other teams that aren't China. because that's all they've been winning against for 3 months.
Right. It is very nice that they're winning against other teams. They beat Philly. They beat
Boston,
right?
3-0.
And so that was really cool. It was a kind of a shocker, and I threw it out on the beginning of last week's show because it was kind of a surprise, and I wasn't done editing yet. So I was like, okay, let's throw this in there. Make sure that we have it in the show because that was weird.
Oh yeah,
totally unexpected.
I was watching it and I still couldn't believe it.
Right,
but I'm happy.
Yeah, sure. I think all Dallas Fuel fans are very happy about about finally seeing them wake up a little bit.
Yes,
and so that's always nice. The other kind of cool thing was that London Spitfire seemed to wake up just a little bit, and they actually had the heartbreaker games. That's what I like to call them when they go full out, when it's 3-2.
Yeah.
And so they won 2 heartbreaker games. They beat Seoul 3-2, and then they also beat San Francisco Shock 3-2. And so that was kind of nice as well. The other kind of surprise over last week was that San Francisco Shock, I need to practice that a little bit. The San Francisco Shock took out the Houston Outlaws 4-0.
Yes. What happened to Houston this week?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it's the meta or what, but Houston Outlaws also lost to the Gladiators. Not a huge surprise there, but
no.
But the Shock is definitely more of a thing.
Yeah, so it is a shock that Dallas and the Shock are now in the 4th and 5th place in the standings right now.
Yeah. Right. It's just kind of it's weird when you look at the full lineup because you have the XL, the Gladiators, the Valiant, the Fusion. All 4 of those you kind of get.
Of course.
And then you have the Fuel, and then you have the Shock, and the Shock is less of a shock after stage 3. But
yeah,
now it seems like wow, we really kind of have a cool stage shaping up.
Totally. And I don't think that it's likely that Dallas or the Shock will advance into the 3rd spot.
Uh-huh.
Or the 4th or 3rd spot. I don't think so.
Right.
But I mean, it's just again, and I know I say this like every week, but like it keeps happening. Like all the things that you don't really expect to happen do or don't. Like it's aside from like NYXL being the best, like they're just gonna be, and that's it. I mean, they've already won the $300,000 Overwatch League standing bonus. Like they're in. Like they're a sure thing,
which is awesome.
Totally. And with Florida and China being in the bottom spot, like those are the only things that I'm sure of. But like with Dallas suddenly being really good, I mean, who knows, right? Like what if Florida could suddenly be really good, or even China, even though they're 0-34 at this point?
They're 0-34 at this point.
Yeah, but and speaking of them, apparently, so their interpreter.
Yeah.
It's like their language interpreter left the team before stage 4 due to a sickness. And so they've been preparing for all their games in stage 4 with no translator at all. And the new translator, I'm not sure if it's like the old translator, if they got a new one, came back the day after they lost their last match on the 26th. So what if the missing piece for Shanghai was always just like communication? Like, what if this interpreter comes back for this week, and what if the Dragons win something this week? Like, there's so many variables in this league. Like Dallas was sucking because of X, Y, and Z, and now they're not sucking because of X, Y, and Z, and it's like a completely different thing. Like at first they're having trouble with players and attitudes and coaches maybe and just whatever, and now they're doing well because like of a meta change, because of a new hero, because of accidentally putting one person on because somebody else was in the bathroom, and then like using Seagull and Diva. Like it's just like it's there's this
I get it. And
this esport is so much fun because you never know what's going to happen.
However, I think we'll get to the grand final playoff look here in a minute, but I just want to talk about this week. Okay, as we take a look at this week's games, these games coming up this week, there are a couple of games where, because we've had this like change of the guard, it's all of a sudden become kind of more interesting. Like the more interesting game to me is, well, of course, the XL versus Philly looks to be outstanding, and that's going to be later today. But I'm kind of intrigued by Seoul versus Shanghai, only because I don't know.
Why not? Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, Seoul recently put their healer on main tank, so you never know. I don't know.
Right. And the other one is like the Dallas Fuel versus the Shock tomorrow.
Yeah, who's gonna stay on top? Who's gonna take that 5th and 6th place? What's it gonna be?
Right.
I don't know. I have no idea. And also the Battle of Los Angeles, the final battle is today.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be awesome.
That should be cool. And the other one that I'm actually looking forward to is if Dallas keeps up their win streak, right? How are they going to handle the Spitfire? Are they going to be able to just, blast them out of the sky? Because that would be terrific.
I would love to
see those guys wake up a little bit. And I mean, like, it's all these mid positions that I'm kind of looking at and going, these are the interesting, I can't really call it type of games.
Yeah, and I love that. I don't delight in games where I know that somebody's going to win. Like, even with my favorite teams, like, I didn't like knowing that Dallas was going to lose unless it was China. And I didn't like knowing that NYXL was just going to win no matter what. I mean, last stage with Boston beating NYXL, as much as I love NYXL, it was insane to see them get beaten, It was cool. It was fun. I mean, I know that makes me sound like a Fairweather fan, but I love the league in general, and I love when these weird things happen. It's just, I don't know. And there's just been a lot of really interesting things happening lately as we're winding down in this season.
Yep. And as you look at this week's schedule as well, you'll notice a number of high, like the upper levels of the teams are battling against each other, and so we'll see that this week. You mentioned the Battle for Los Angeles tonight. But and I also said NYXL versus Philly today, but there's also Philly versus Gladiators. There is NYXL versus the Valiant. So there's, we've got some play happening here, and we'll be able to see exactly what how that all plays out. Very, very cool. Very
cool.
Very fun. Now let's take a look at the overall standings, because you had mentioned that NYXL has already won $300,000 for coming in first place for the season, or yes, for the season, not for the stage, but for the season, because nobody can beat them at this point. Now they're 31-3. The next one down is the London Spitfire at 22-12. It's not going to happen.
No, nope. They're untouchable. No. They're completely untouchable at this point.
Right.
I mean, congratulations to New York. I mean,
sure.
They've just been consistently good this entire time, and it seems like they learn from their own mistakes, and they learn even more from everyone else's mistakes.
Right, and
if that makes sense.
Kind of. So we have a big kind of bunch of teams that are kind of in the middle, from number 2 to number 8 in the league, where it's just kind of like we don't know exactly where that's going to go quite yet, and so we'll be looking at that. But you look at San Francisco Shock, the Fuel, Mayhem, the Dragons; those guys are all out as far as being available for the grand finals. They could still do something in stage 4. Not the Dragons, not Mayhem.
No, not the Dragons.
The other two could do something for stage 4, which would be fun, because that way we'd get to see them in a playoff type of situation, even though it wouldn't be in the grand finals.
Yeah, and at least it's something.
Yes.
Rather than nothing.
At least it's something. That sounds like a good show title, doesn't it?
I'd watch that show, I guess.
Right. So there is also something else. As we approach the end of the season, there was another idea floating around, and this is not a new idea, because Overwatch League has said this, that they wanted to add more teams. But you actually wrote a story for DoubleTap.com. That's DBLTap.com.
Yes.
About this. Why don't you run us through what's going on?
Sure. So back in February, the CEO of Activision Blizzard eSports, Pete Valestica, or
I don't know what it is.
Vlastelica.
Right.
He said that they're expecting to begin selling additional expansion teams in the Overwatch League later that year. So they didn't have any further details at that point. But he clarified and he said that they would like 6 new teams by stage 2, 2 from Americas, 2 from Asia Pacific, and 2 from Europe and the Middle East. So that's 6 more teams by season 2.
Okay.
So he didn't really go into much detail, but he said in particular that Berlin seems like really important to Blizzard because Germany apparently plays an important role for esports, and it's particularly true of Berlin with its rich history of esports, the founder scene, and the liveliness. And he said, add this to the demographic profile and the cultural significance of the city. So, I mean, I guess that's sort of like, yes, there's going to be a Berlin team, but that's like 6 more teams, and that's coming up really soon. Like, do you think that Overwatch League can handle an influx of that? Like,
absolutely. I think they definitely can handle 6 more teams, and it'll be the more interesting thing to me is how much is the buy-in going to be for these 6 teams, right? Because for the first round we had $20 million for the franchise to come in. And for the second round, it's not going to be 20 million. Nope, it's going to be more. So what is that number going to be? And I've heard numbers somewhere around 30 million for season 2, which is insano. But I think that Overwatch League in general has shown that they are making this a thing.
Definitely.
So that's great. And yes, I would totally agree with you on the Berlin thing, only because we have things like Gamescom in Cologne, and I know that the Germany's been great for a number of Blizzard properties, including World of Warcraft, for sure. I don't know exactly what it looks like for Overwatch, but I'm guessing that it's just as hot.
Must be.
They have, well, yeah. I mean, it seems like there are a few places in Europe where I would probably want to put up a flag if I could, and that would be Paris.
Definitely.
That would be Berlin. That would be, gosh, I don't know, Sweden somewhere would be great. So, all 3 of those, plus I know there's more. I know there's more.
There's going to be, yeah, of course. There's going to be Toronto. There's going to be Sydney. Like it's going to be great. And then like two more North American teams. Like I would love to see 2 more Canadian teams.
Sure,
that would be fun. Yeah.
Sure. It's
good for me.
You have to make sure that you're dividing it up between Atlantic and Pacific. However, because we have those 2 different regions, I guess.
Sure. So like Vancouver and Toronto,
or Vancouver and. Well, no. Let's go Toronto and I don't know, Seattle.
Or that's not Canadian.
Or Minneapolis. It's close. It's close to Canadian. So there.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be great? No.
Sure.
I don't know. Sure. Let's go with that. And also for season 2, they are still going to be playing in LA. Is that right? They're going to still be playing in Burbank at least through season 2, and then after that, hopefully it'll be built out, right?
They were hoping to do like home games and in season 3. So I think that's a reasonable amount of time. I think getting more established teams right now, if that's like their goal, then they will need an entire season to do that, and it's going to take an entire season for people to like, accept all of these new players and new staff and new teams and stuff like that. But by season 3, hopefully, and I think that it will, Overwatch League is going to be more global with these new teams and more popular just because it's been going for long enough. And I think that once the grand finals are over, people are going to see that it's like a real legitimate esport and something to be really excited about. And so I think season 3 is reasonable. And, they're also going to need some time to like get these cool buildings built and stuff like that. So I can't wait.
So
it's gonna be so cool.
So now, have you also been following, just to get away from Overwatch League a little bit, have you also been kind of following Overwatch World Cup at all? Or will you?
I will, of course.
Okay. because that's the thing that's going to be played at BlizzCon later this year. And right now they are going through kind of building the different teams and stuff like that. And I know that our very own John Horstman he's been selected as one of many to vote on for community person for Team USA. And so if you guys are out there and you really want John Horstman to be a part of the community part, or anybody else, but seriously, John, because then maybe he can get me stuff.
That's why you want him to be the community leader for the US of A?
Yeah. I mean,
that's a great reason, Pat.
Why wouldn't I? There's got to be a little bit of a selfish reason. Come on. But then I might be able to bring that to other people as well. So
sure. Thinking about others is important too.
Knows? Right. After I think about myself. So vote for John Kicked Tripod Horstman over at playoverwatch.com. So there. Let's switch it a little bit to World of Warcraft.
Okay.
And we can talk a little bit of Arena for World of Warcraft. Now, we just had the EU Cup number 2 for summer.
EU Cup number 2?
EU 2.
Ew.
You too.
You too. Yeah.
You too.
Way to go, Bono. You suck.
Anyway, this is not a music review. Let's keep it to the Arena, and let's talk about this weekend. What happened?
What happened was, no, it was great. It was, your standard AWC weekend. Lots of exciting gameplay. Of course, EU always brings, a more cerebral approach to PvP. So it's really interesting to watch as somebody who aspires to get better at PvP. Like, there's so many benefits to watching this, and especially listening to it. Like, don't just have it on the background. Like, if you want a good example of the way like PvP should look in arenas, obviously this is the best way to do it. But the casters are so passionate about it, and they really they take a lot of time and effort between matches to sort of catch you up on what just happened, because sometimes it goes by really quickly and you're like, right. I don't even know why everybody's dead now. I don't get that.
Sometimes it's like 30 seconds and you go, wow, it's over?
Yeah. Who died?
What happened?
Yeah, exactly. So I know it does look confusing, but if you really just look at it, and before the day starts, they explain what all the icons on the screen means and stuff like that. It's really easy to get a hang of it, because the casters are they're so passionate and so excited, and it's so easy to get hype, even if you don't really know what's going on. But anyway, so it was like that this weekend, and it all came down to Tempo Storm was dominated by Ascendant in the lower bracket, so that was a 3-1, I think. And then Method Black took a quick game 6 and tied the series at the end against Ascendant 3-3. And then Ascendant beat Method Black 4-3. So it was interesting, because I always kind of assume that Method and Tempo Storm are going to do well, you
Sure.
would assume that. And they do, just because they didn't win the top spot doesn't mean that they didn't do well. They did. But it's interesting because I don't know, as far as AWC weekends go, there's usually just very clear front runners, and they sort of go along, and all of the teams that don't seem as strong or prepared fall away, and then you're left with the top 3 or 4. And then during those last couple matches on the second day, it is always just completely nail biting. That's where the excitement comes in, your heart is pounding. It's just because they're so desperate to win at that point that sometimes there's mistakes, sometimes there's desperate switch ups and plays, sometimes there's weird spell rotate. It's just, I don't know. It's just that's the money, Pat. That's where the money is, if that means anything. But that's what happened. So it's pretty cool. So the standings right now for EU are Ascendant, Method Black, Tempo Storm, Keyboard Rhythm, XRB to the Moon, JMS Fake Zebras, Hiccup Cleave, and Meme Team.
All right. Well, and it was so the interesting thing to me about this last weekend was that Ascendant actually lost to Method Black and then came back and beat them. Yeah. So I mean that was kind Revenge. That was right in the semifinal round they lost, and then they came back in the finals and beat them. So I'm like, okay, cool.
You never know.
That's actually kind of neat, and I do think that you're right on with the analysis that sometimes, especially in those earlier rounds, it does seem to be kind of like this thing where some teams just get steamrolled.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. And, that's what happens. I mean, because you want a bunch of teams playing against each other. But the problem is that those really awesome teams are just going to, boom, just do a barrel roll right over everybody. So
but that's how those lesser teams, get their foot in the door and I don't know.
And get good.
Yeah, and get good.
Right.
So NA Cup number 2 for summertime is this Saturday, June 2nd. It starts at 10 a.m. PDT. And the standings right now are The Move, Method Orange, Casca's Angels, Super Rejects, Super Frogs, Noble, Plot Twist, and Dallas.
All right. Do you have a particular favorite?
I do love the Super Frogs. So I hope they do really well.
And Super Rejects are pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, they are good too.
I don't hate anybody.
No, me neither.
Certain teams stand out and I go, I like those guys. That's one of them. So, anything else for Arena that you wanted to share?
Just that it's really great.
Okay. All right.
It's a good time.
So everybody should watch twitch.tv/Warcraft all weekend. Or something like that.
Like all weekend.
All weekend.
All weekend.
All right. Well, once again, Thist, thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to check out Thist on Lagging Balls, her podcast, and the LB stream, and over at dbltap.com. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that is going to do it for this week on BattleNet Sports. Kind of a little bit of a shorter show, and some people are like, oh, thank goodness. But please make sure to keep an eye out for all of the different stuff that's going on this weekend. First of all, of course, we have Overwatch League, and then we have the NA Cup number 2 for WoW Arena. We also have all of the stuff happening out at DreamHack Austin. And I know that there are players like, I mean, for StarCraft 2, there's like Showtime, Neeb, Special. Those guys are going to be in Austin trying to win their spot for WCS at BlizzCon, as the winner of that series actually gets their own spot in BlizzCon. So that's pretty cool. Also, don't forget, DreamHack is also going to be featuring HCT this weekend as well. So lots of different esport action. It's going to be great. By the way, speaking of esport action, I will talk about there's a new daily thing that our good friend Jewel Scott is on, and it is from Nerf This and RP Esports. It's called Esports Daily, and this is where Jewel Scott and Brian Huff are bringing you all of the latest esports headlines every Monday through Friday through Amazon Echo and your favorite podcatchers. You can find Esports Daily on iTunes, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Google Play, all that kind of stuff. Just search Esports Daily from RP Esports and hit the old subscribe button on that stuff. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button on this stuff yet, please do. Always welcome that, no matter what your podcatcher is or YouTube or whatever. Make sure to join us. You can always make sure to join us over on ConvertToRaid.com as well. That's where we have all of our different stuff, not just from BattleNet Sports, but also from BattleNet News and kind of around our universe, because there is the Convert to Raid podcast network over there as well, right on the homepage. Boom. All of the different shows from the different regular players that are on this show. You can find their stuff there as well. It's all over at ConvertToRaid.com. That is going to do it for this show. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. No matter where you're listening to us, we love that we are along for the ride. So, until next time, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.